paperback and e-readers this March. John Haynes, the man with nothing to lose. The man who rules the world runs into the irresistible force of a man with nothing to lose in this action-packed, all-new John Haynes series adventure. Get the regular and variant cover editions of John Haynes, the man with nothing to lose this March. One of my viewers asked me to do a video laying out what specific tangibles we need to demand from our local politicians. And there are several specific tangibles I believe need to be demanded. However, before we make any demands of a politician, we need to educate the black masses on how the political process really works. Now, the big problem with black people ever since they received the vote back in the 1800s is many do not understand the political process. Many believe that they are just supposed to vote for a political party, and because they believe we're just supposed to vote for political parties, they buy into a covert contract where they believe if they support a politician of a certain political party, that political party will go out of its way to meet our needs. Unfortunately, over the last century, this covert contract has been a complete failure for black communities because black communities go out en masse to vote for certain political candidates and they wind up with absolutely nothing in return. Now, the way black people get their tangibles in return for a vote is to get educated on how the political process works first. And the first thing that black people need to understand is that their vote has power, and if they hold their votes, they prevent certain candidates from political parties from being able to dictate how they get their needs met because they are now in the driver's seat. Because before, they let the politician be in the driver's seat and let the politician dictate the terms to them. But when you hold your vote, what happens is the politician has to come to you, and when the politician comes to you, you have leverage in the situation, and when you have leverage in the situation, you can use that leverage to dictate what you demand from that politician if they are voted to office, and dictate what policies you want put in place as that politician goes to office. In addition, you can demand earmarks or government funds like block grants that are directed to your community because this politician has to deliver on the goods, or in 2 to 4 years or 6 years in the terms of senators, you can go out here and terminate that candidate because that candidate is not meeting your direct needs in the contract. And that's one of the things black people need to understand about the political process is we have to start treating the political process like a business. And when you treat it like a business, what you're saying to that candidate is you are a hired employee and you are supposed to deliver certain things as related to the contract you made with us. And if you do not deliver things as related to that contract on our terms, we will vote you out, And that's what black people need to learn how to do, is learn that they, the people, are in the driver's seat. They, the people, are the ones who dictate the terms to the candidates. They, the people, are the ones who demand the tangibles from the government, tangibles that they are owed because they have paid taxes into this country and invested these resources into the country, and they have a right to receive a return on that investment of resources they put into this country. And black people's first tangible they need to demand is tangible reparations for over 400 years of slavery, over 100 years of discrimination, and over 50 years of being oppressed in a welfare state, which denied young black males access to the job market and denied young black males and females access to a middle-class life. And those tangible reparations are owed to black people because black people built this country. black people built the infrastructure of this country. We made it possible for most of America's infrastructure to be here, whether it be your railroads, whether it be your bridges, whether it be your tunnels, whether it be your buildings, whether it be your agribusiness. If it wasn't for the slave labor of black Americans, this America would not be the great country that it is right now. And that labor that these whites and non-whites received was primarily free labor, and now it is time to pay tangible costs for that labor and pay back wages for that labor. And that's what black people need to see reparations as. Back wages, not only for the people of this generation, but of the previous generations that were not compensated fairly for their labor. So that's the first thing black people need to demand from their politicians is tangible reparations in the form of financial compensation to every black person who was descended from a slave. And that is, again, fair compensation when you consider the 400 years of slavery, over 100 years of Jim Crow, and 50 years of discrimination that has denied black Americans who were descended from slaves an opportunity to compete in America and receive access to the American economic system. And while they were denied access to the American economic system, many of these same whites and non-whites profited at the expense of black labor, and they also suppressed black labor, denying blacks accesses to the job market and also denying blacks access to building and creating wealth. So we are deserving of tangible reparations, and the United States government can provide tangible reparations to black people because the United States government has money for reparations for other groups, such as those who suffered in the Holocaust and those who suffered in World War II and Native Americans who suffered. And if these groups can receive compensation in the form of reparations, then why cannot black people? And if the politicians do not want to support financial reparations to black people for past and present ongoing discrimination, then we do not need to vote for those candidates because that is the foundation of any contract for any self-aware, educated black person who understands what voting is all about. That is the core foundation of what a tangible is, getting your government to cut a check, to pay, to recompense all of these black people out here who were descendants of slaves, who have been discriminated against and have been denied an access to the opportunity that America promises everyone and an opportunity to receive access to the American dream. That is what most people need to understand. What is so important about reparations is ensuring that black people receive that tangible of a check and making sure that that financial compensation is given to black people like myself and many others who were descendants of slaves, because we have been denied systematically an opportunity to access the job market and an opportunity to access the business marketplace and compete effectively against other whites and non-blacks due to business policies and social policies that ostracize African Americans who do not follow a certain political narrative or a social narrative. Now, the second tangible I want to see done personally is an effort to rebuild the American black male. And this is something that I believe is an important tangible because in addition to a financial foundation, an effort has to be made to rebuild the American black male so that he can re-establish the patriarchy that is essential for building wealth in black communities. Now, currently, the black community, over the last 50 years, has been a matriarchy, And because it is a matriarchy, the economic system is a consumer-based system that leads to black dollars flowing out of black communities into the hands of whites and non-blacks, and those people enrich themselves at the cost of $3.3 trillion of cash and credit. And we, in order to stop that flow of dollars going out of the black community, we need to start educating our young black men and investing in our young black men so that they can create the patriarchy that will allow them to compete effectively and create a producer-based economy that will allow money to flow back into the black community. Because over the last 50 years, as I stated in my ebook, Why 70% of Black Women Are Single, you had a cabal of white supremacists who insidiously tried to destroy the black economy, and they did this by changing the black patriarchy into a matriarchy. And by changing the patriarchy into a matriarchy, they changed the economic flow of dollars. And again, this was done deliberately because they did not want to compete with the black economy. So what they wanted to do was teach black women about this white feminism, made them believe that white feminism was something that would empower them, and then made them believe that being a part of a welfare state would give them better benefits than being supported by their black husbands and black fathers. Moreover, they sought to demonize the black father through media campaigns. And again, this is something that we need tangible reparations for, and we need a re-education of the current generation of young black boys and young black girls. And this is something that will be done not on the terms of the United States government or the public school system. This is something that will be done once the check is cut for reparations, and then black people will go out here and we will create programs to re-educate the black man, reinvest in the young black man, and make efforts to build strong, heterosexual, masculine black men in black communities who can grow to become fathers and leaders and heads of household, fathers, leaders, and heads of households who will have an education on how to use those economic resources of reparations to go out here and build. Because the man is the natural builder, and as the natural builder, once he is educated and self-aware of his purpose in God's natural order, what your man is going to do is build a strong black community and build strong black families. And that's why the tangible of rebuilding the American black man is the second building block next to financial reparations, because an educated black man who was not educated by some consumer college is important, because we need a black man who understands his role as a man, his value as a man, his purpose as a man, and understands his role as a husband, his role as a father, and his role as a protector and a provider. Because currently today in the matriarchy, the male has no role in society, and because he has no role in society that is defined, this is why we have so many young black males lost. But we need to invest in their education first, because without that man to be there to lead the community, the financial resources given to black people, they would wind up getting squandered. And that's very important, is we invest in rebuilding our black men and women and invest in developing their understanding of their roles as men and women, because as a result of the feminist movement over the last 50 years, we have a lot of young black men and women who do not understand their roles as men and women, and because they do not understand their roles as men and women, this is why so many young girls are out here winding up becoming harlots and single mothers, and why so many young black boys are growing up confused as related to their male identity and confused in some cases as related to their sexuality. So we have to invest in the tangible of educating our young black boys because, again, they are God's leaders, God's stewards, and God's head of household. So that's the first thing. That's the second thing we need to do in terms of tangibles. The second tangible we need to do is re-educate our young black women. And our young black women, they have been miseducated over the last 50 years by the white feminist movement. And because the white feminist movement has told the black woman she is just like a white woman, she believes a lie that was told to her, and this lie has led to her adopting several paradigms that have led to her being in a dysfunctional state. And I go in depth on those paradigms in Why 70% of Black Women Are Single, an ebook I wrote, and I will leave a link to that ebook in the description box. And those paradigms are including believing that she is the equal to a man, which is a lie because God did not make men and women to be the same, and also making her believe that she can have the same power as a man. Now, the Most High Living God made the man and the woman. He made them to be partners to each other, and each have different purposes and roles. And your black woman has bought into the idea of feminism and makes her believe she can be the equal of a man, and this is not true at all. A woman's role is to be a helpmeet and a support to a man, and this is something a woman needs to be educated in from birth to understand that her role is equal. While it is different, it is equally important to the Most High Living God. So your woman's role as a helpmeet and a support is to help the man in building the community. And how she helps by building the community is not by being in the trenches with the man, but by being in the home and in the community by taking care of the children and taking care of the man. And this is something that needs to be re-educated on because the feminists told the black woman that this was sexist, but this was not sexist at all. This is the natural role that the woman needs to be educated in, and once she gets a tangible education in that role, then she can be a helpmeet and support in building a black community that remains strong and building a strong black family, because the role of the black woman is equally important in tangibles, because when your black woman understands her role as the first teacher and the first teacher of culture, then she can do her job effectively. Because today, under the feminist movement, we have most of these black women working at these corporate jobs, and the children are winding up being lost because they are not getting taught about black culture, they're not getting taught about their black identity, and they're not being taught about how to love themselves as black people. And that's a tangible that is very important, because without that foundation in being taught a culture of black pride, black awareness, and black love, then you don't have a foundation for a culture of a black community. So that's another tangible we have to work on. And again, the foundation of financial reparations leads to us rebuilding not only this black man, but also rebuilding this black woman. Now, the next tangible black people need to demand of our government are policies that ensure our protections that were guaranteed us under the United States Constitution. And those tangibles are in terms of laws that are not only written, but laws that are also enforced. Because in the past, we have had tangible laws on the books, like the 13th and 14th Amendments, which guaranteed freedom from slavery, and the other amendment which guaranteed us equal rights under the law, but we have not received tangible enforcement of those laws for over 100 years. And what we want is tangible enforcement of those laws, because when we receive tangible enforcement of those laws, then and only then can we have a fair and balanced and just system. Because currently, our American legal system is extremely unfair, extremely unjust, and when we look at cases like the Bill Cosby sexual assault trial, it's clear to me that our justice system is not one that gives anyone equal justice under the law or equal rights under the law, because your Bill Cosby was practically railroaded through the criminal justice system as related to trumped up charges by the prosecutors like Kevin Steele. And again, what we want are tangible policies in place to ensure that black people receive equal justice under the law. And in addition to receiving that, we want equal access, the tangible of equal access to the criminal justice system. And what I mean by equal access is we make sure that qualified people that we choose are the ones selected for judges. The ones we select are elected to political offices like mayors and governors, and the people we select are voted in as city councilmen, who will ensure the delivery of tangibles on a regular basis to black people, and ensure that we get a tangible justice system that ensures that we receive, again, equal protection under the law and receive equal rights to things like due process under the law that we are entitled to but oftentimes do not receive, like Khalif Browder here in New York, who was denied equal access to the American legal system by the criminal justice system, which practically let him rot in Rikers Island instead of giving him his Sixth Amendment right to a speedy trial. Because this is what happens when you don't demand tangibles. People like Khalif Browder wind up being locked up for years at a time, never ever receiving due process under the law that they are entitled to, because oftentimes black people are not educated on, again, the core foundations of black manhood and black masculinity, black womanhood and black femininity, or access to economic tangible resources that can provide them with that essential education so that they can understand their rights under the law. So we also need tangible legal protections under the law. And when I mean by legal protections and legal representation, I do not mean these boule, uppity Negroes who have made themselves a buffer class between black people and the people of the government. I mean regular brothers and sisters out here. We want tangible access to that government. And what we want to do is break that buffer group out of the way, push that buffer group out of the way. And the only way we can do that is through tangibles. So that's why the black vote is extremely important, because the black vote has been denied access to tangibles, and the black vote has been taken for granted for over 100 years. And if we do not receive tangibles, then we have no incentive to go out here and vote for political candidates who represent our communities, but will go out of their way to give everybody in the community access to tangible resources in terms of economic earmarks and block grants, and also giving us policy. These people get all of the tangibles, while black people wind up with a big bag of nothing. Even worse, we wind up getting speeches thrown at us, like that Barack Obama did when we gave him 92% of our votes, and he gave black people absolutely nothing. And black people like Trayvon Martin, Michaels Brown, and many others wound up losing their lives and could not get any justice from Barack Obama's criminal justice system. Again, we could not get tangible justice, and if you cannot get tangibles, from your government that you, again, pay taxes into, and you have overpaid taxes into, and deserve a recompensation for those taxes that you have paid into the system, then what incentive do you have to vote for political candidates who practically have tangibles for everyone but have nothing but excuses for you? And this is, again, a business contract, and that's what black people need to start understanding with these politicians that they have with you. And you need to make it a business contract. When these politicians start talking, you need to start talking business, and you need to start talking about what tangibles you demand from those politicians, because those politicians' job is to deliver tangibles to you. Because when you take your tax money and send it to Uncle Sam is supposed to return it to your community in the form of tangibles, whether it be tangibles in the form of a check, which is the first thing they need to do because we have been starved of economic resources, or tangibles in the form of the resources to build and maintain a black community, like federal funds for things like roads, highways, streets, good public schools with quality teachers, and giving us access to things like resources to create and build libraries. That is all tangible resources you're supposed to get, and tangible resources you have been denied for many years, because many black kids who go to these current public schools, which are primarily run by white females, the white females get big paychecks for being teachers, but the black kids get next to no education. But when black people are in charge and they're educated and aware, those tangibles come in, and when those tangible resources come in and those black people become educated about the standards to create a black community, we get black teachers teaching black children, and we get black businesses in black communities, and we get a functioning black economy where black dollars stay in the black community, black tangible dollars stay invested in the black community, black tangible dollars stay circulating in the black community, and black politicians have to come to black people and deal with black people on their terms. And that's why we need to define what tangibles have to be given. And again, it's not just about cutting a check. It is also about creating policy that is tangible and tangibly enforced by people of our choosing, and having those tangible people in place to ensure the maintenance and protection of black people. Because that's another aspect of tangibles people really need to think about. It's not just about tangible dollars. It is also about ensuring that tangible people are in place to maintain these policies. Also about making sure that there are tangible people in place to protect black people's interests, and making sure that there are tangible people in place in black communities to ensure that the economic system that allocates our resources remains allocating and maintaining all resources that are directed to us. Something we have been denied for over 400 years is equal access to the American economic system, an economic system which takes our resources and reallocates it to every white and non-black person. And that is just not right, because again, we were the ones who built this country. We were the ones who built the infrastructure for this country. We were the ones who established all of the foundations that people economically benefited from for 400 years. And we have not been granted access to get equal opportunity. Yes, they would give out a few crumbs of jobs here to different groups, like your elite boule Negroes or some of these black women who have been indoctrinated to feminism, but that was all done so that those groups could bring that money back to whites and non-blacks. But people like myself have been denied access to that marketplace for years, because I have applied for jobs for over a decade and never received any sort of employment. And again, that discrimination prevents guys like me from doing things like bringing tangibles to the black community, tangible resources which could be used to invest in educating and re-educating young brothers and sisters out here and getting them to understand their value as men, their value as women, and then going out here to build things like black-owned businesses and build things like strong black families. And again, tangibles aren't not just dollars, it's also trying to teach black people the common sense that they need to learn their roles as black men and women and understand that we need tangible people with a tangible education in black awareness to be our leaders in our community, be able to maintain our community, and those tangible people in place and in political offices that represent our community. Because if we don't have those tangible people in place, then again, we have no reason to vote for these politicians, because we are the ones who are supposed to pick our politicians. And for too long, we have let other politicians come to our communities and tell us what we need to take from them, when it should be us, the taxpayers, telling them what they need to give us, and insist that if they go to Washington to represent us, they are going to bring tangibles back for us. And if they cannot bring tangibles back for us, then we need to vote them out. And again, the black agenda is not just about tangible reparations. It is also about educating black people about the political process. And it is also, the black agenda is also about empowering other blacks to understand why we need a black economic system. Because if we don't look out for ourselves, others aren't going to look out for us, and they're going to take our resources out of our community through things like the welfare state or things like affirmative action jobs, which take money out of black communities, because affirmative action, again, was originally designed to give the black man his equal opportunity. But unfortunately, racists and white supremacists circumvented that program and gave those jobs to white women and black women. And they did that so that they could continue their consumer-based economy, knowing that 97% of black female dollars would go out of the black community, whereas 97% of black male dollars would go into building a black community or a black neighborhood, not a neighborhood, but a community of men who are invested in a community. And again, when men invest in a community, what happens is they have an ownership of that community, and they have an incentive to protect that community because they have tangibles in that community, like a home, like a business, like a family. And those tangibles are important to those black men because this is where they live, this is where they work, and they're going to maintain a standard of living, something that most racist whites and non-blacks don't want to see, because a strong black community filled with black people who own tangibles is a place where they cannot attach a financial hose to suck dollars out of the black community, and a place where people like your pimp pastors cannot rip off black people to live a lavish lifestyle at their expense by manipulating the word of God into their pseudo religion. Because when the black man is in charge, the black pastor can't get a hold of the black women, and he cannot manipulate them by manipulating the word of God to make them believe his religion or his ideologies. Because again, when the black man is in charge of his home, when the black man is in charge of his family, the black pastor is not going to be able to demand 10% of somebody's wages, tangible wages. The black man is going to give as he is able to give, and like the Bible, like Jesus stated, where he said, "Give as he is able to give." And when you have tangible black men in the community, tangible black men create again that standard of living and that quality of life that black people have been denied for so many years. That American dream, that middle class lifestyle, a tangible black people really have wanted for years, but a tangible we have been denied because so many have been miseducated on the concepts of how politics works and how tangibles work towards building a stronger black community. And that's why it is important for black people to understand the things that Professor Black Truth has said about no tangibles, no black vote, and no black agenda, no black vote. Because unless your politicians are offering you tangibles, they can go on their way. And if they're not about supporting a black agenda that we create on our terms and what we demand, then we have no incentive for them. And again, the foundation starts with financial reparations and builds into the rebuilding of the American black man, the re-education of the American black woman, and tangibles as related to creating policies that protect black people's civil rights, black people's legal rights, and reforms to things like the child support system, which is clearly biased, just like the criminal justice system, and giving us reforms to things like child support and divorce courts so that black economic resources do not wind up in the hands of hypergamous females who want to monkey branch but are used towards establishing things like a strong black family and strong black children. So these are all things that we need. Again, tangible financial reparations, tangible policy, and tangible individuals who will ensure that those policies not only are put in place, but remain in place from generation to generation, and tangible individuals who will ensure that resources continue to flow into black communities. That's why tangibles are very important. And again, these are different types of tangibles, and we need to understand how all of the tangibles work in tandem with each other, because when you understand how the tangibles work, then you understand how the political process works, and you understand how to teach people how to vote from generation to generation to ensure that we get black tangibles in exchange for a black vote. If you want to see me make more videos like this, you can donate to my Patreon, my PayPal, or my Cash App by clicking the links in the description box. And if you want to try some of my SJS Direct publications, like the upcoming John Haynes, The Man with Nothing to Lose, or ISIS, The Main Event, which feature positive images of black men and women, you may do so by clicking the link to Amazon.com in the description box. That's all I have to say for this video. You can comment, rate, and subscribe.